Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. Today we're going to be talking about this, the ATI Fatboy 45. And it is a subcompact 1911 based gun with a double stacked magazine that in standard trim holds 10 rounds. 10 rounds of 45 ACP in a relatively compact package. Color me interested, which is why I picked it up. So before we get into the weeds on that, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. It's very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses who have helped this channel in innumerable ways with contributions of guns, ammo, and general support. So thank you all. Now, one more note of housekeeping. I am shortly going to be making sponsored videos. I have been approached by an online security product, which I am currently using and evaluating. And if I find it to be useful and a good value, I will be accepting their sponsorship, and it helps the channel. And I can't see not doing it, or at least trying it out. Anyway, on with the game. Now, the large capacity 1911 was really introduced by Para Ordnance, initially as a frame that you could build a 45 on, and then they began making their own guns. And for some time, they were it for high capacity 1911s. And then the STI, then now Staccato, introduced the 2011, which has a steel chassis with a polymer grip module, which reduces the overall weight and allows the use of high-capacity magazines. This is not, notably, a 2011 style gun. It is a one-piece alloy frame, including the grips. Now, early examples of this gun that I've seen videos about from when it was current, maybe a decade ago or so, actually had an add-on, very thin add-on grip panel that attached with screws. This one does not. I do not know when in the arc of this gun's production that this change occurred, or if they ran concurrently or whatever. Perhaps you can help me out by telling me in the comments if you know. It has a functional Para Ordnance style grip safety, which is not interchangeable with standard 1911 grip safeties because of these little projections that cover the slot where the trigger bow that actually activates the mechanism comes back. And it's an interesting little gun, which is why I got it. And it's been very much a mixed bag. Now, the original owner stated that this gun was unreliable, and he was not kidding. Using 230 grain factory ammunition, the gun would not reliably go into battery. And in fact, even without ammunition in it, if you manually lowered the slide, you'd get to about here, and from there, it would just slowly creep closed. Obviously, this is an issue. So I took it to my workshop to see if I could determine what the problem was. And what I discovered were gouges along the bottom of the barrel where the last little bit of lockup, it was just really jammed up against the inside of the slide. So I relieved that, and that part ceased to be a problem. It was still having problem chambering rounds, so I did the standard thing you do with any type of 1911 gun and tweak the feed lips. And this seems to have solved that problem. Then it started having a problem with hollow points, and the feed ramp on both the frame and the barrel was exceptionally rough You can't really see that very well in this light. But, so I smoothed that out. Now, that seemed to have solved the problems hand cycling. So, let's see what happened when I went to the range. It worked. Different magazine. Interesting. Worked that time.
I go down left.
So as you can see, the gun started out with the same old, but it got better. And after I tweaked the feed lips of the magazine a little more and did a bit of this and a bit of that, and then fired a hell of a lot of rounds through it. Well, not a hell of a lot. Fired quite a few rounds through it. It wore in, and now, by the end, was running flawlessly. So, in addition to the poor fitment issues of the barrel, the gun needed a break-in period. I'm pretty much on record how I feel about break-in periods. I do not think it is right at any price point for the company to draft the customer to finish the gun for them, because that's what a break-in period is. Enough said. At this gun's price point, I object less than I do on a $3,000 semi-custom gun, but I'm not a fan. What I am a fan of is the way the gun shoots. It shoots very nicely, and I found it was very easy to engage in rapid fire, and produce reasonable accuracy at self-defense distances by doing so. And overall, I really enjoy shooting the gun. However, part of the reason that I really enjoy shooting the gun is it has significantly less recoil than a full-size government model. Given its size, it's probably comparable, but you would expect it to be worse in the smaller gun, and it's not. Part of the reason for that is the recoil system, the lower reciprocating mass of the slide, but another big part of it is you lose about 150 to 200 feet per second going from a 5-inch barrel to a 3 1/4-inch barrel. Now, the ball ammo was coming in right around 700 feet per second, and the 230 grain gold tip or gold dot hollow points were coming in at about 750, 760. I don't think gold tips are going to open at that velocity, although I've got a gel block coming in a few weeks, so maybe I'll try it out and see, but I seriously doubt they will expand at that velocity. Now, this is an issue. It's not a critical issue because I'm pretty sure that if you put the shots in the right place, it'll still work. But I think the gun overall might be better with lighter bullets in the 200 to 185 grain range in terms of hollow points. I think you've got a much better chance of getting enough velocity for them to expand in those lighter bullet weights, and perhaps I'll try that out too. So, we're going to get to the minuses. And that's best done in the tabletop where I can show you what I'm talking about. The Fatboy is reasonably compact. It is, including the beaver tail, 7.5 inches long and right about 5.5 inches tall, including the magazine base plate. And it weighs 33 ounces, which is not super light nor exceptionally heavy. You know, it's kind of a middleweight, and I really think you probably want it to be, firing 45 ACP out of such a small package. The sights are a Novak-style rear sight, which is very nice. Serrations on the inside, and a white dot front sight, and I found the sights to be pretty much dead on. It shot to point of aim at 7 to 10 yards, just fine. The trigger is not light. It's 5.5 pounds, but there's very minimal take up, and it is commendably crisp without excessive over travel. And the reset is good even in terms of 1911s. So it's very easy to use, even though the trigger is rather heavy. You've got forward slide serrations, just enough to be useful. And overall, the exterior fit and finish is quite good. Now, the slide, I think it's blued, kind of a matte blue finish. And the aluminum frame is very nice. And you can see this is really nicely fitted. Everything very flush, very blended. I would prefer that it had an ambidextrous safety as a carry gun, but it's not a deal breaker. And the safety is ample and provides a really good shelf for helping control recoil. So they've done a lot right. But there are things that they haven't done right. So let's show you some things. Takes apart just like any other 1911, except it has a captured recoil system. And this is a double plunger recoil system with this plunger extending out the front and then this spring compressing too. And it manages the recoil in a very short distance and allows the slide sufficient travel to do what it needs to do. Now, one problem is you can't just pull this recoil system out. And by the way, it is supposed to be a captured recoil system, and it only kind of is, because sometimes it just pops apart. So you have to be careful. So the way I have found to do this is to take the punch, press in on the cap until I can get a hold of it, and pull it back far enough that it's not keeping everything anchored in the gun, and then I can remove that. And as you can see, it just slipped over where it is supposed to be captured. And you have to watch that. Now, I'm not a big fan of recoil systems like this because they tend to have a short spring life. So I'll be looking into an alternative from EGW with a single flat coil wire spring, because in my experience, those work better. However, once I've sorted out the other problems with the gun, this one does work acceptably well. And there it goes. The barrel is a pretty normal bull barrel type barrel. Looks a lot like a Colt Defender barrel or the short SIGs. It is 3 1/4 inches. They specify 3 3/8 inches, but I've measured it. It's 3 1/4. And you can see down here, there's still some little marks, but I had to completely smooth and polish this area to get the gun to go into battery at all. And that is not as it should be. I also had to, there's carbon all over it from firing yesterday, polish both the feed ramp on the barrel and in the frame to get it to cycle reliably with hollow points. These are not good things. So let me reassemble this. And we're reassembled. Now, let's talk about the things I don't like. I don't like the recoil system for reasons that should be obvious to you by this point. I don't like that the barrel was not fitted, but more importantly, I don't like this sharp edge. There is no good reason for it. And with somebody with larger hands like mine, or CJ, who also shot this gun, it digs into the palm of my hand. And it's manageable. I can live with it. But it's not comfortable, and there's no reason for it. More importantly, having that edge being so sharp means that under a light cover garment, it's going to print badly. And the shape of it overall, it's going to scream gun to anyone who sees that. And that's not what you want on a concealed carry pistol. Another niggle is the magazine. This corner sticks out quite a lot. And after a couple hundred rounds, it was starting to get uncomfortable digging into my hands. Now, that is easily fixed. I'll take a file or something and just take that corner down. Problem solved. But it shouldn't be there. The problem shouldn't exist to begin with, because you'd think it might occur to somebody that having parts of the gun that stick into people's hands and wear against them under recoil is a bad thing. So I still really like the gun overall. So the Fatboy is produced in the Philippines, and that's no knock on the gun because some very nice 1911s come out of the Philippines. But this one, it's like they got 90% there and just said, good enough, ship it. And I'm not a fan of that. I think a gun should work out of the box. Maybe that's just me. I don't really like break-in periods. That being said, despite my niggles with things like the sharp corners and the fact that it didn't work out of the box, I quite like the gun. The form factor is very good. The weight is within certainly an acceptable range to anyone who understands gun belts and holsters. The capacity is good. I have serious questions about the ballistics. So I will be testing, gel testing ammunition out of this gun because I'm curious. I'm curious if the 185 grains and 200 grains will work. I'm curious if they will work better than the 230s, which I'm pretty sure won't. And we'll see. Now, I don't know what these go for. These were a medium-priced gun when they were new, and I would expect they still are by modern standards. If you're interested in getting one of these on the used market, I would strongly recommend that you do so with the understanding that you may have to fix it. It sucks, but there it is. Now, I think it's worth fixing if you have the capability to do so, because as I say, it's a clever design. Overall, it's well put together, and it just needs a little bit more. So to me, now I'm a hobbyist and I'm a hot rodder at heart and a 1911 fan. So I'm going to mess with it and get it around to where I want it to be. And, that'll be fun. And you'll see the results. By the way, the grip safety I wanted to mention. It's very low profile. It's got a tiny little speed bump. But I had no issues with activation, and it works very well. Better than I would have expected. And as I said, it is really nicely blended in. So, credit where it's due. It's a very handsome pistol. And your mileage may vary. So, that's it for the Fatboy. And that's it for this time. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.